Today I'm ranking every type of camping from S tier to F tier, and yes, glamping did make the list. We've got 10 types of camping, from dispersed camping to car camping. I'll explain what each one is, show a clip, and rank it, and explain why. Okay, so we're gonna start with car camping, and this is probably one of my favorite ways to camp because it's reliable, it's convenient. You max out on comfort, but you can also get out there in the remote wilderness. So you can take 2 tracks, you can drive for miles, set up your campsite, and you just have everything with you. So if you need a case of 100 waters, it's just gonna be there with you. For that reason, I'm gonna put it in the A tier. It's not quite S tier, it just doesn't do it for me. I need to be a little bit more off the grid. I need to be a little bit more disassociated from a vehicle or from technology in order for it to be S tier. You know, you can camp outside of the car, or you can go in the car and warm up if you need to sleep in it overnight. Something that I've done as I've driven across the country, I've just slept in my truck, save a lot of money, and it's much safer than being in a tent because nobody can get to you. All right, for the second one on this list, we have backpack camping. Now, backpack camping for me is easily S tier. This is the video game version of open world play. You can go anywhere you want. You can practically do whatever you want. You're not constrained to anything. You know, you have enough gear. You know, you have the room to put enough gear in a backpack, so you can have clothes, food, tools, all this stuff you need. And people backpack camp all the time. They hike through Appalachia, they hike the Pacific Northwest Trail, they hike everywhere. And if you have the right size backpack, really, you know, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Just being able to go anywhere with the supplies that you need. So for me, S tier, without a doubt. Now we have to talk about campground camping. You know, it's accessible, it's social, but it's not very wild. And I really think this only works under certain conditions. You know, you need to go with a group of friends. You need to go with family. You need to embrace the archetypical thought of camping. You know, when you think of camping, you think of s'mores, you think of a tent. Maybe you do think of a campground or a lake by the campground. You know, this is camping in its most stereotypical form, and it's great if you have the right people. So for me, it's gonna go B tier. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it with the right people, but it's never something I would do on my own. If I'm traveling to go fishing or if I'm just camping, I'm not gonna go to a campground. I'm not gonna pay $40 a night when I can shower in the lake, right? I can make my own food over a home-built fire, and I'm not gonna be around people. So that's one of the downsides for me, is when you're at a campsite, you're around a lot of people. You're around some pretty strange people, you know. Campsites, they draw a certain crowd. And I think you guys know who I'm talking about. There's just a certain type of people, not everybody, that goes to campsites. And I typically like to avoid that unless I have my own group of people. But if I don't, I'm just gonna go into the woods and call it a day. All right, now we got hammock camping. Now it's lightweight, it's fun, but it's just not for everyone. It's really hard for some people because if you can't sleep in a hammock, you're not gonna be able to hammock camp. My friends and I have hammock camped about over 30 days. Not all at once, but we did 2 separate trips to Guatemala where we stayed for a couple weeks, and then I've hammock camped on my own, and I think some of my friends have even spent like 3 or 4 months of total time hammock camping. So it's great, it's a lot of fun. Personally, I love hammock camping just because it's easy. You put the little bundled up hammock into a backpack, then you just get a rain tarp just in case you need it, and you're good to go. But it doesn't work everywhere, right? I mean, you have to have trees for it to work. So if you're in the desert, not gonna work. If it's fall or winter, it will work if you bring a quilt. And I have friends who prefer that. They just bring the hammock for everything they do. They don't have tents. I'm not quite there yet. Maybe I need the tent more than they do, but you can make it work all year round. You just have to make sure there's trees, but it's not for everyone. I like it. I'm gonna put it B tier. I think most of my friends would put it A tier, but for me, it's a B tier camping. Forward, we have kayak and canoe camping. That's a unique scenic mix of, you know, kayaking, paddling, and camping. And where did I put this? I didn't even remember. I put this in the A tier, okay? I put this in the A tier because it is one of my favorite ways to camp. For me, there's nothing more fun than putting all of your gear on a kayak or throwing it in a canoe and then paddling and finding your campsite. Or even boat camping. I've taken boats on the river and I've gone up a couple miles to find a campsite. And I think the appeal to that is there's just so much freedom and there's so much unknown. Especially if you're out on a lake or a river and you're just exploring for a spot to go, it makes it fun. It's a little bit more off the grid, and depending on how far you take it, but I love the fact that once you get set up, you can just go out on the water and fish. You can catch all of your food. If you bring a water filter, you don't even have to bring water. So you could go kayak, canoe camping with no food or water, Obviously, I wouldn't recommend that for most people, but you get by doing that if you're more of a survivalist. The list is fall, winter camping, primarily just camping in cold weather. And I rank this, let's see, I put this in B tier. You know, I love fall and winter camping primarily because there's nobody around. So you can go to popular sites. You can go to campgrounds if that's your flavor. You can go off the grid, you can go on trails where a lot of people camp, but if you're there during the fall and the winter, nobody else is there, so it's really peaceful. The obvious downside is it's very cold, so all those activities that you would normally do in the summer, you know, swimming, fishing, can be limited. You know, you have to dress warm, you have to bring a lot of gear. It's a little bit more expensive if you want to do fall winter camping. I love it. I think it's a great form of camping. I think the cold weather is amazing, but for me, it does go B tier because it's a little bit more limited. You know, you have to spend more money. You have to be a little bit more well-versed on what it means to camp and how to stay safe. But it's something I like to partake in. And I think I'm going to make a lot of fall, winter camping videos this year. So stay tuned for that. This is a form of camping not a lot of people talk about, but this is beach camping. All right, and beach camping is going to go into the C tier. I think it's fun, but the waves, the wind, and the sand just can ruin it for me. And I'm not talking about a campground near a beach. I'm talking about camping straight on the beach. You know, if you do it right, you know, maybe you can pull off a couple S tier nights. You know, if the weather's perfect, if there's no wind, you can get a sleeping bag right by the fire and fall asleep under the stars. But usually that's not how it goes. So, not a huge fan of beach camping, but it's like campground camping. If you're with the right people, it can work. But most of the time, there's so many factors that have to be met, so many different forms of criteria that have to be just perfect for it to be a good night of camping. So C tier for me. Sorry Donald, sorry Blaze, sorry guys, but it's a C tier. It's a lower form of camping. It is. Moving into some of the more rugged stuff, we have survivalist / bushcraft camping. Now I kind of have done some of this. But when I say survivalist / bushcraft, I mean really rugging it. That means no sleeping bag, that means no tent, that means everything you do is essentially what nature offers you. You can bring a backpack and some supplies and stuff to cook with. The idea is that you do everything on your own, right? You make your own shelter, you cook with things that you make, you kill the stuff that you eat. You know, you do everything you possibly can on your own, and it's minimalistic, so you bring nothing more than what you absolutely need. So this is a B tier for me. It can be a lot of fun, but it's just not something that I see myself doing quite frequently, because it can get a little stressful. Because I've had nights where I've done survival camping a few times, not something that I do all the time, but I've had a few nights where I built a shelter and it was cold. It was so cold, there was no comfort, I didn't have a sleeping bag, and sleeping on the ground just kind of sucks. So unless you know how to build a really good shelter, or if you just give in and bring a tent, a pillow, and a blanket and call it survival camping, for some people that might be, but for me, you really have to be almost bare minimum in order to consider yourself a survival camper. So now we're hitting the latter end of the list, and we have dispersed / boondocking camping. So this is just camping at its most total freedom. So it's a little similar to backpack camping in the sense that you're probably just going to have a backpack and you have the freedom to do what you want. But this is going to target more remote areas. And I wouldn't call this bushcraft or survival either, because you're going to have a lot more material with you. So for example, going off to a remote island and camping with a backpack would fit this criteria. Or going to a national park and hiking 30 miles off the trail to some random spot. That's going to be the type of camping we're talking about. And I'm putting this in S tier. This is the kind of camping that you have to do some research for. You really have to find a good spot. You have to come up with a plan. And I think it's fun all the way through. You get to come up with a plan, you get to go execute, and it's always a good time. You know, when you're going somewhere no one else has been, or at least that's how you approach it, you're always going to find something new. And I love that, but it's a little bit more dangerous. Obviously, people need to know where you're going, but that's an S tier. That is absolute S tier for me. Glamping it makes me angry to think about the fact that people call glamping camping. You know, I talk to people and they're like, yeah, we're going camping. And I'm like, great, that sounds awesome. And then they have a $200,000 RV and they're towing a $100,000 Jeep behind the RV. And then they're towing a ATV behind the Jeep, and then they make a second trip back to their house to grab the garage. You know, it's just not even camping. You're taking your house with you. Yeah, it's just it's F tier, in case you haven't figured that out by now. There's just so much I don't like about it that it's hard for me to pick one thing at a time. But no, you're living in a mobile home, and you just happen to be in a woody area, or even if you've seen some of those KOAs are just right outside, or even in cities. Like, KOAs have no moral grounds. Like, they have no self-respect. They'll put a KOA anywhere, and then a group will show up in a $200,000 RV, say, oh, we're going camping. But no, dude, you're living in a glorified trailer park. That's what it is. It's a glorified trailer park. It's not camping. You know, if you have a kitchen, a bedroom, a table, like, you know, to eat at, all in one, and a bathroom, all in one vehicle, it's not camping. You know, it troubles me. It troubles me deeply that people think we need to do something about glamping as a society. We cannot let these people keep getting away with it. They cannot call it glamping, because it shouldn't even share the same sound as camping. All right, we're going mobile homing. All right, we're going for a drive in the house. All right, we're taking the house down the road, and we're temporarily updating our address. All right, we're making a temporary change of address. That's what this is. This is like a step below a vacation. Right? It's a vacation for a lot of people, but it's a step below, because you don't get a house or an apartment to stay in, but you still have your vehicle. There's a lot of weird people who do it. You know, you've seen like what is the family from Meet the Fockers? That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's always some really weird, overzealous family, and I don't know. It's F tier. If I ever become a glamper, just shoot me. Just kill me. Like, if I ever become a glamper, just take my life. I don't want to be in a world where I'm a glamper. So those are the 10 that I had for today, and let me know what you think of the rankings. I mean, what would you do? Would you put some of them higher? I know the glampers are gonna be like, you're an idiot. It should be at least S tier, but I'm not gonna budge on that. I'll budge on the other ones, but let me know what you think. Well, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I want to make more videos like this doing rankings, and yes, I will be outdoors in the future as well. I'll be fishing, camping, magnet fishing, doing all sorts of different things. So this is just one thing out of many, but if you're still here, please consider supporting the channel and subscribing. We will see you at the next video.